Imagine yourself in a room with nothing but your phone and a book. You'll naturally gravitate towards your phone, which is much more stimulating and provides more comfort. If you try to force yourself to read the book, you may feel uncomfortable, especially if you are not someone who regularly reads books. This is because between the phone and the book, the phone provides more pleasure, and we have been conditioned to seek instant gratification thanks to highly addictive social media. Now, imagine that same scenario with you in your room, but with only a book. Your most stimulating option has just disappeared, and now you have to choose between reading a book or meditating in silence for the next 8 hours, which isn't even possible for most of us. Now, the book that was uncomfortable to read earlier, or the assignment that you've been putting off, suddenly becomes much easier to do. Even if you resist doing it at first, you'll cave in as it's better than just sitting in boredom. You're not necessarily doing it because you find it fun, but because you find it more enjoyable than your other options. If the most stimulating thing is reading a book, you'll want to read a book. Even your dreaded chores you've been putting off will be more enticing compared to sitting alone in silence. We are less bored than our ancestors were, but we are much more afraid of boredom. Boredom is something most of us try to avoid in some way. Right now, we live in a world where people are constantly trying to escape boredom. Most people are constantly trying to fill up their time with meaningless activities. They would rather do anything than be bored. People are so afraid to stay alone with their own thoughts, and boredom can indeed be very uncomfortable. What can we say when now most people can't even go to the bathroom without taking their phone? If you want to outwork everyone, you have to be willing to outwork everybody in the world. Well, having the ability to outwork everyone is actually a lot easier than you probably think. Focus is a modern-day superpower because everybody is distracted. It's not difficult. There's just no competition. It's so easy to be successful nowadays because most people are weak. If you can develop focus, you can literally, and I mean literally, run laps around the competition with ease. By constantly trying to escape boredom, you'll create an inability to stay alone with your thoughts. As a result, you'll lose touch with your own self and what you want in life. Your creativity will most likely decrease to zero as you don't give your mind any time to think. And if so, how are you supposed to come up with any great idea? Escaping boredom will also largely impact your focus. If you constantly numb yourself with activities that create large increases in dopamine and pleasure, everything else will seem boring and meaningless. However, if you spend a lot of time alone, being bored with your own thoughts, most of the activities you know you have to do, but don't, because they may seem boring, would be much easier to execute. Building a business, studying, and other not easy tasks will require much less mental friction to execute. Up until a few months ago, I found it impossible to focus, impossible to start a task. I would find myself mindlessly scrolling through YouTube videos, despite how they didn't bring me any actual joy. With my friends busy and no work to complete, I resorted to instant gratification that didn't bring me any actual happiness. However, my brain still perceived this instant gratification as being the most fun thing to do, so I continued consuming content and playing video games. This ultimately led me to feel bad about myself because I would just feel so guilty for having pushed my tasks off day after day. Your procrastination would most likely disappear if your other alternative would be simply doing nothing. But because you can scroll TikTok all day and play a video game instead, it becomes much harder. This constant stimulation is making us chase comfort when we should be doing the opposite. Everything worth gaining in life is found on the other side of your discipline and discomfort. As a society, we have been conditioned to look for comfort and avoid the things that actually align with our mental wiring, like challenge, self-education, and growth. Understand that 99% of people can't be bored, resulting in them never being able to focus on a task with any depth. They are stuck in a constant state of doing shallow work. They get little done in lots of time. Meanwhile, a person who doesn't mind being bored gets lots done in a short amount of time. By being bored, it makes tasks far easier to execute because you are no longer going into tasks with the tension residue from your overstimulation. This ultimately cures your procrastination because there is no longer any friction preventing you from starting a task. So, swap out the cheap dopamine activities you are allowing your brain to be rewarded by and replace them with more boring tasks like reading instead of scrolling. Sounds terrible at first, right? But after a while, the less stimulating activities will actually stimulate your brain just as much as the cheap dopamine activities did, allowing you to become a productivity beast. If you want to outwork everyone, doing deep work every day is a non-negotiable. This is the ability to enter a period of undistracted focus to complete your work. It's crazy how much of a superpower undistracted focus is in such a distracted world, and it is actually the decider of whether you will be in the 99% or in that 1% of winners. That's the secret. Doing periods of deep work has transformed my life, and it all begins by allocating a specific time of day to do your work. By repeatedly doing your work at this allocated time, your brain will create an association that at this time you have to work, which will result in deep work becoming a habit for you. By setting myself this deep work block, I literally became twice as productive. A task that previously might have taken 4 hours now only takes 2. This is because the deep work ensures that there are no outward distractions pulling away your attention. It's said that even a 1 to 2 minute phone call during a period of deep work will cost you up to 20 minutes for your focus to be regained. Here is a quick productivity hack you probably already know. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. For me, this is literally a non-negotiable for a period of deep work. I set a 90-minute timer and focus on my work until the time is up. Sitting down for a period of deep focus is amazing. Your thinking becomes clear because you get lost in the task, and it feels like time actually moves faster. That feeling of making progress is just amazing. Some of the greatest people in the history of our world came up with revolutionary ideas that changed the world when bored. The first person is Isaac Newton and his famous story of discovering gravity. As the story goes, Newton was sitting under an apple tree in his garden, bored out of his mind, when an apple fell from the tree and hit him on the head. This event got him thinking about the force that caused the apple to fall, and he began to wonder whether this force might be the same force that kept the moon in orbit around Earth. He also developed mathematical formulas that described the relationship between the mass of two objects and the force of gravity between them. I'll give you an example, much closer to us in the timeline: Steve Jobs. Jobs was famously known for his ability to come up with innovative ideas, and it is said that he did some of his best thinking during periods of boredom. For example, he reportedly came up with the idea for the iPod while on a plane, bored with the limited entertainment options available to him. You have to learn to love being alone in some way. Get comfortable with your own thoughts, and nothing will be able to stand in your way. Great ideas often arise from the depths of boredom, for it is in the moments of boredom that we are forced to confront the limitations of our present circumstances and are inspired to explore new possibilities. Finally, to gain the ability to outwork everyone, it is vital that you identify your goals. Nowadays, it is so rare for people to actually have clear goals. Everybody is multitasking between tasks, and that's because nobody has the ability to focus anymore. So before you start your tasks, write down what you want to accomplish beforehand. This eliminates the distraction and resistance that comes about as a result of you debating what tasks to do. But to get to the point where you really want to sacrifice cheap pleasures, and where you're willing to sit and be bored so that you can finally learn how to work hard, all comes down to how bad you really want it. So, ask yourself, are you just going to let TikTok, Instagram, or any other social media distract you from your goals? If the answer is no, then go grab a piece of paper and make a list of all the things you need to do. The trick here is to include things that are extremely easy to do, such as cleaning your room. Then, whenever you catch yourself bored, you can look at your list and pick an easy task to complete that will bring you fulfillment. Thank you for your time.